All right. So we just heard about these missiles dropping today. Market looked like he had a little drawback today. All this going on in Syria. What do you got to say about this?
It's interesting. Well, this is there's a couple of things going on. First of all, I think the market was reacting more. The jobs numbers today seemed a little weak in total numbers.
Hmm.
However, on the good news was there was unemployment. The unemployment rate is like as low as it's been in ages. If you really believe those, I'm very skeptical about those numbers because I think there's just too many people out of the workforce still.
Hmm.
There's too large of a too large of a percentage of people not working and don't really count in those numbers. Um, on another positive note is manufacturing employment was quite good. It was very strong. Um,
Hmm.
One of the criticisms of the previous administration is, well, it was generating some job growth. A lot of these jobs were sort of like bartenders and strippers and things like that. They weren't they weren't generating those
Good
meaty high
jobs.
income jobs. Yeah, real jobs, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, it makes kind of sense because the previous administration was a big believer in, that the government was going to kind of this idea that centralized planning was going to work and the government knew better and growth in the government was going to just generate a lot of government jobs. Um, Now you got kind of the reverse of that going on. So you had that in one part.
Hmm.
There's also some other weird things that I want to talk about that people don't know about. And then, of course, last night, just before President Trump is about to sit down and what we call the Sino Trump negotiations down in Mar-a-Lago. The night before it happens, he orders a missile strike. Now, if you've been a follower of Trump, you know that most of the campaign he belittled all his opponents and wanted to stay away from any messy involvements in the Middle East because it seems to be a no-win situation. Um, I look at it a little different. I know some of Trump's big supporters were very upset today over this, thinking he's weakening and getting sucked into this stuff. I think it's a little different. I think he was sending a strong message to both. First of all, what he did is in 1 second he blew up that whole idea that he's in some collusion with the Russians because he attacked a
Hmm.
Russian ally. They clearly didn't expect it, and they were pretty pissed off about it. If you look at the rhetoric they were throwing around, they were kind of mad early, and then they appeared to almost be scared later on because then they started backpedaling and saying, "Hey, wait a minute, this might be our ally, but we had nothing to do with the count. We didn't know anything about this," and blah blah blah. So they really started backpedaling in the afternoon. So Trump sent them a strong message. He also sent, at the same time, he managed to send that message to Iran, North Korea, and a lot of people would say the Democratic Party. To
Hmm.
me, I'm looking at this more of if you go way back. Now, this is way before your time. In 1981, when Ronald Reagan was president, he had this event that kind of emboldened his whole presidency. When he came in, he had a lot of issues, just like Trump. He was picking up a big mess that Jimmy Carter had left him, the previous administration, and not just Carter, was a mess that was building for a long time. And one of the major turning points of the early part of his administration was Reagan was challenged by the air traffic controllers, and 13,000 said they were going to go out on strike, and Reagan fired them all. And I believe he actually had the president of the union arrested and dragged out and basically in chains and
Wow.
handcuffs by the FBI, and they were immediately fired. And then military transit, not tra- air traffic controllers were brought in to run the whole system. It was very controversial at the time, but it was a bold move that said this guy is serious. We need to start paying attention here. And I think Trump he needed to break up the noise because it does appear like the Democrats were going to keep up and the media. We're going to go nonstop with this Russian collusion thing 24/7. It was getting real old, and there doesn't seem to be any evidence, but they figured if they just kept talking about it over and over again, that was everything was about that. And I think that Trump kind of silenced that last night with one shot. Now, The
Mm.
market, of course, gets really skittish because the market sees, all the negative. Oh, we're going to get
Missiles,
World War
missiles
III.
going on. What you
Right,
know?
right. We got 59 cruise missiles, and we're going to get World War III. And then in the afternoon, there are reports that the Russian Navy sent a ship to some old Navy frigate is Russian Navy frigate is going to chase 2 U.S. destroyers. Good luck with that. That's just like that's almost humorous. Meanwhile, it's not like those destroyers are sitting around waiting, having a tea party, waiting for this guy to show up. They like shut off the missiles and they move on to other things. They got other places to bomb. So it's interesting. I think that this was just to send a strong. I think this again. A lot of people continue to look at Trump in this sort of the traditional way: the Republicans against the Democrats, and Republicans mean this, and Democrats mean that, and all that kind of stuff. And I think that Trump has continued to redefine what that really means. Because if you
Mhm.
notice, suddenly CNN said now he's really a president because we're going to have a war in the Middle East, so that makes him a real president,
Mm.
which is really funny. And they're like his biggest critics, and he attacks them all the time for being fake news. Some of the other, I was like people like John McCain, who have been big critics of the president, suddenly loved him. They were like, they're ready to go. Let's bomb somebody else. So McCain was writing a list down of all the places he
Mhm.
wanted bombed in the next couple of days. Like, they were ready to go. They're ready to bomb everybody. I think I wouldn't take any of that from this. I think you just saw a move. There was a good excuse to use that move. You had a chemical attack. There is some debate over whether that's real or not. But Trump, as well as the Trump administration, as well as several other countries, seem to think that really is real. Um, I think he just, he's sitting down with China today, that's a big issue for it's a big impediment for Trump's economic policies of kind of build things in America. So China is a big issue. China could be maybe turn out to be I don't want to say an ally, but at least we might get a better understanding with them because
Mutual. Maybe get a mutual agreement.
yeah, frankly, I don't think that
Now,
I
James. Now, you
go ahead.
said what happened with Syria, right? Last night in the jobs report and the manufacturing report.
Right,
Now, I know the last time you was on the show, you was extremely bullish on the market. Does that
right.
change anything?
I think right now we're having a digestion. We had that really big run at the beginning, and we
Mm.
ran up like huge for the first probably 3 months nonstop. And now the rubber's got to hit the road here. So now, Trump, as well as everybody else, is into the reality of Washington, D.C. And Washington, D.C. is run basically by millions of special interests all fighting with each other to claw their little piece of the big budget pie. And so getting things done, as we've all seen, for example, another interesting trick that I think Trump played is he gave Paul Ryan the ball to run with the healthcare reform. And what
Mm.
happened? It didn't get done. And so not only did Paul Ryan fail, but the traditional mainstream Republican establishment failed. And nobody, I mean, except for Trump's really harsh critics, nobody sits there and goes, it was Trump care and it was Trump's thing. It wasn't. This was Paul Ryan's thing, and he failed. Now, Trump comes, he makes a few threats at a couple of people in Congress and says, listen, if you guys don't get on board with this stuff, we're gonna campaign against you. We're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. Now suddenly there's love. And
Mm.
the conservative caucus, that was like the Freedom Caucus, which was the big issue, is suddenly saying, hey, we only need like 3 little changes and we could support this thing. And those 3 changes are very significant. And I frankly would like to see the government totally out of healthcare. And I think that the people, the idea that you or I or even Bill Gates could not afford to get open heart surgery without massive amounts of insurance to pay for everything shows there's no realistic pricing in anything. And
Mm.
so for example, people like me, I tell you the truth, I'll go to the doctors and pay $150 to get or $250 to get a checkup. But I need somebody to help. If I get open heart surgery, I need somebody to help me pay for it. So for
So,
me,
because I know that we are getting into Trump.
right, we're getting too far
The
away from.
Obamacare. Yeah,
Yeah,
the Trump. We're going into the Obamacare. But I want to reel
Right,
it back in with the new Syria, what's happening with
right,
Syria.
right. You want to
Would
focus on
you
Syria,
the guy who's investing right now, and they see
right?
this happen, and they're like, hey, I had some people saying, hey, what should I invest? Should I go get a defense stock? Should I get a defensive? What should I do? How can I
I
capitalize?
think
What,
I
where,
think
how,
you
when?
got a lot of the same. I think the same stuff is in play. It's just now they're getting the details done. Like if you follow the what is it? The House Financial Committee. Let me just see something real quick here. I think it's called the Finance. Let me just get you the right name. Oh, it's called the House Financial Services Committee.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if you follow them and you see their like press releases and things like that, I mean, basically yesterday or the day before they released they were attacking the CFPB. That's like the centerpiece of Dodd-Frank. And they continue to call it the unconstitutional CFPB because it was ruled unconstitutional, and they were attacking them over dropping the ball with all this, with that Wells Fargo fiasco, all that, not only trying to hustle customers to sell them products in the bank, but basically, creating fictitious accounts and sticking people with things. I think as
Wells
long
Fargo.
as yeah, Wells Fargo. That's you might want to ask when you go visit Berkshire Hathaway a little later. You might want to visit. You might want to ask Warren Buffett about his feelings on that because I think he's the biggest shareholder of the bank. Anyway, you might want to sing him instead of doing the Barbara Walters question. If you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be? This would be a good shot. So anyway, so I think as long as you see those things going on, there's a big push to deregulate. If you know, well, you probably didn't notice because the media is not covering because they're busy talking about this Russian conspiracy 24/7. But you did notice the Keystone pipeline got approved. That's going to generate a lot of jobs. I would be a big fan of energy stocks. Period. I think fracking and stuff like that. I just think to have an energy policy where the United States should be energy independent, regardless of how we get there. If we have to use we have to use a combination of sun, oil, gas, all these resources we should use together. And say, for example, Hawaii has a lot of sun. Maybe Hawaii can use more sun. Now, I know in New Jersey we try to push solar power, but it's kind of silly because New Jersey, I think statistically, it's like it's only one day in six that we have any sunlight in New Jersey, and that's
Wow.
just because the air is so
Mm-hmm.
dirty. I'm kidding. It's like, oh yeah, the air is kind of dirty. But anyway,
Yeah, the air's
so
kind of
yeah. The thing is, you get used to it. You like to live in a place where you can see and touch the air. Like you got to be in a place you can taste the air. See, if I go to a place like Hawaii, the air's so clean. Like there's no air. I get nervous. Like I don't feel the air because it's
I don't feel the dirt. I don't feel the dirt in my
right,
nose
right.
for
I'm
as
so
long as
used
I
to
can
feeling that, like
enjoy
on the tip of my tongue, I can like taste the dirt and
it.
like
I
it's
can't
just
taste
the
the
dust. So you just kind of you get used to that. It's comfortable. Anyway, don't turn us off yet. We're talking about business here. This is serious.
dirt.
So I think still like I think banks, and now this is not for a short term trade, but I still think that any of these setbacks are opportunities, particularly Bank of America, all those banks we talked about last time. I haven't quite put together a bunch of energy stocks that I'd be running out buying, but I do like energy with this environment. I mean, when you pick the former chairman of Exxon to be your Secretary of Treasury, sorry, I mean the Secretary of State, you got to like say, hey,
Mm.
this is going to be good for the oil business. And I think that Trump's idea about trade, contrary to a lot of what you're seeing in the media, Trump is going to go deal by deal. He's going to sit down with the Chinese, like what he's doing right now in Mar-a-Lago. He's going to say, what do you guys need us to do? And I'm going to tell you what I need you to do. And we're going to try to work that out. And that may be totally different resolution than what we need to do, what the Japanese want us to do, and what we need to do with them. And I think Trump is going to be very willing to just go place to place, country to country, and knock these agreements out. He's a wheeler dealer. That's what his life has been all about. He worked in construction. He's a developer. He's used to dealing with unions and all kinds of crazy things, and a lot of disparate like issues. So when he goes and deals with all these countries, they have all these disparate issues that they got to worry about. So I think in the long run under Trump, trade is going to be much better. And like he said, the biggest plus for us is instead of always being a win lose where we get to lose and everybody else gets to win, now it's going to be a little more even. It'll be more like win-win situations. And I think like you're seeing
Okay.
with England, England just Brexited, right? And first you had these
Hmm.
dire predictions that the whole country was going to implode and sink into the sea, and that was the end of the world. And then of course you have on the other side where they're ready to reconstitute the Royal Navy and resurrect the British Empire and all this kind of stuff. I think both sides are a little exaggerated, but I think things are going to move along. And I think that in France, you're going to see Le Pen's going to win. And then the French are going to talk about breaking out of the EU. And then the EU's over with. Um, when you look at this missile thing in Syria, going back to the missiles, think about it. 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, Trump just yelled that in Sweden they were underreporting the crimes, the terrorist attacks, things like that, and Sweden poo-pooed them. What just happened yesterday? There was a truck attack, and it was clearly a terrorist attack.
Mm.
And the Swedish government came right out and said it right at the beginning. They didn't even wait. I mean, CNN was like, "Are you sure?" They were backing up and talking in circles around it because we don't want to admit there's terrorists, but it was there. And
Mm.
I think Trump is pushing to the forefront the right. You can't hide from this anymore. There are bad people. They are hiding with the immigrants. We're gonna, the other thing about Syria is in the past, like we said, oh, if we bomb them, like Obama's policy seemed to be, if you kept chaos there, we just take in all the
Hmm.
immigrants here, and like we take in all the refugees, quote unquote, right? But Trump
Hmm.
has already said no to the refugees, so now we actually have to solve the problem in Syria. Like we can't just let it hang. It can't go on like this because there's no place for those people to go. And we're not
Okay.
just going to take them here. They're not going to just go to Hawaii. They got to fix this thing. And I think he's trying to suggest that with the Russians, say, listen, you got leverage. We need to fix this thing. However, it's going to be fixed. We're not going to clean up everybody's mess, and we're not going to get suckered into spending all the money and doing everything for everybody and then get nothing out of it, which is what usually happens. Um, I think that there's a lot. I think he's using this. Always think when you see what Trump does, think of that book, The Art of the Deal. These are a lot of this stuff is negotiating tactics. Now I know that sounds really cold to talk about a missile attack on where people could have been
Hmm.
killed and things like that, but it's so much like this is such a strong message to sit down and say, listen, I was mad about this yesterday. This is what we did. Boom. And it just it scares everybody. Everybody takes a deep breath and says, because like I said, even Sweden said, "Wow, we got a terrorist attack. We better admit it because who knows who Trump's going to be bombing next." And like, it's like um, I just think it's a sort of a sea change moment in the administration because this media story about the Russians and this and everything's crazy and all this and the Russians stole the election and all this nonsense is like this is so dead now. You have to be
So
mature.
now, like what you were saying with the uh, going into Trump and Syria, and then the terrorist attacks that are going on, you will stay bullish on the market. You will
Yes.
invest into energy stock, and you will stay bullish on the financial industry.
Yes, definitely, because deregulation is there, and then of course we want to be energy independent, which is you got a big push for that. So you got to think that area is going to be exactly how to play that yet. I'm not sure, but that area is really strong, and that's where I think I'd be focused right now. Any like sell offs, weaknesses. I would use as buying opportunities. We're waiting to hit the runway yet. We're like this is like the that little rev that we had that big rally, and now we got a sort of
Doozy.
a digestion period, right? And then we're going to
Uh-huh.
get a little bobbing up and down. You're going to get a lot more volatility in these markets than you've had in a long time. So if you're not used to it, like you better like wear your seatbelt because I think you're going to see a lot more volatility. I would use weakness to buy, and I think Trump is going to think of a snowball. It's gonna as the farther he moves forward with his plans to deregulate and stuff, the more he gets his kind of people in, like he got a Supreme Court judge, things like that are gonna are his ability to affect change is going to become greater and greater.
Okay. Well, James, is there anything you want to let the listeners listen to out there that you want to tell them?
Oh, the only thing I want to say is it's always a pleasure to come on the show, and you do a great job. I think Prince is the guy. You should listen to what he tells you. He knows what he's doing. And as for me, I am. If you want to find out what I'm thinking about, you can check out on Facebook. I have a page called Unofficial Wall Street.
That is
Um,
unofficial.
Unofficial Wall Street. I do like Wall Street tours, but there's a lot of commentary and stuff like that, and it's kind of fun because I had worked downtown for like many years, longer than probably most people watching this have been alive, and yeah, and so I have some fun because I get to talk to people and relate all my crazy stories about the heydays, like the 80s and 90s, and then yet we still keep up with the market and do some other stuff, and it's kind of neat. A couple of weeks ago, we even saw Jim Cramer was out there. There was a bull trying to gore him in front of the New York Stock Exchange when
Jim Cramer was out there the other day.
yeah, he was the rodeo was doing a listing on the New York Stock Exchange, and they had cowboys on horseback,
Oh,
and they had a
got it,
bull
got
there.
it.
And they gave Kramer a cowboy hat, and he was trying to interview somebody. And every time he got near this guy, the bull kind of charged him, and they had to move outside the pen. They had to move somewhere else because the bull just didn't like him. I guess they didn't like his stock recommendations or something.
Okay. Okay. You definitely, I love always having you on. I'm going to have you on more frequent, get these more recent events of what's going on. Like we got Syria. We touched on to Trump care, Obamacare, whatnot.
Right.
Trump going overseas dealing with China. And, the last time you were saying, hey, you was bullish on the market. You was bullish on finance. And this time you threw in, hey, you've been bullish on energy stocks. And
I'm
like you
grow
said,
my
what is,
yeah
Mhm.
I'm
Go ahead.
snowballing like Trump. I'm starting to grow more and more ambitious about what I think is going to happen. But I'm talking the next 8 years.
Mhm.
I'm not talking
Tomorrow
like
morning, yeah.
I'm not telling you to buy it and flip it over to like from Monday to Tuesday. That's not what I'm talking. I'm talking a more long
Mhm.
term, strategically where it looks really good to put your money.
Got it, got it. So, James, definitely glad to have you on. We're definitely going to be chatting and keeping you live on the show. And to everybody out there, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, comment, and share button. Got any questions, got any comments, drop them below. Shoot me an email at askprince, ASKPRINCE @royalfinancials.com. And we'll get that taken care of. Thank you guys for tuning in. Peace. Be safe. I'm out.